Coping with Diagnosis Workshop. Chapter 1. Receiving a Cancer Diagnosis. Welcome to the Coping with Cancer Diagnosis Workshop. My name's Dr. Lisa Dvorjetz and I'm a MacMillan Counselling Psychologist working within the Bedfordshire Community Health Services. Along with my colleague Dr. Mary Kilty, MacMillan Clinical Psychologist, we'll be presenting various topics around coping with your cancer diagnosis. This series of workshops aims to help you acknowledge the emotional and psychological impact that receiving a cancer diagnosis can have on you and those around you. We will also be providing some helpful ways for you to manage your emotions going forwards. We would recommend that you watch these videos in a chronological order, as each one builds upon the last. It's okay to pause the videos or come back to them at any point in time, as some of what we discuss may elicit a range of feelings. As some of the videos contain space for reflection, we would encourage you to have a pen and some paper handy so that you can write down your own thoughts or experiences. When and following receiving a cancer diagnosis, you can be faced with a lot of change and uncertainty. This change and uncertainty impacts not only your physical health, but your whole life. For example, your physical ability, work, home life, family life, relationships, your imagined future, your identity and sense of who you are, your appearance, and your finances. Cancer can challenge your mental map of the world. This means that you're faced with the task of not only adjusting to the news of the diagnosis, but adjusting to what this might mean for you, your family, and your life going forward. Being diagnosed with cancer is a time where people face multiple transitions, from being a well person to being an ill person and a patient, from feeling one has unlimited time in this world to knowing one's time is finite, from having felt fully able to living the rest of one's life disabled, from looking one way to feeling disfigured, from being an ill person to being a survivor, and from being a full-time patient to being fully engaged in life again. The topics in this video will cover common responses to receiving a cancer diagnosis, the task of adjusting to a cancer diagnosis, the impact of a cancer diagnosis on relationships and family life and how to support each other, some tools and strategies for coping with the emotional impact of a cancer diagnosis, and extra support and where to find it. You, your family and friends will all respond to cancer in different ways. Today we will cover some of the common emotional responses that people can experience when they or loved ones receives a cancer diagnosis. To begin with, we'd like to invite you to take part in an exercise. Grab your pen and paper to write down some of your reflections. You may wish to pause this video whilst you write down your responses following the questions I'm about to ask. Take a few minutes to cast your mind back. What were your reactions, or your initial thoughts, or what went through your mind when you got your diagnosis? For some, this might be crystal clear, whereas for others it might feel like a haze. Notice what it was like for you. We'd like to invite you to pause this video again to spend some time reflecting on what you've just written down. How do you feel about things now? What if you were to repeat this exercise, but from the perspective of your loved ones? What would you hypothesize that their thoughts or feelings were initially? Do you think that they were similar or different to your own ones? I'm going to read to you someone from the Cancer Diary's reaction to receiving their cancer diagnosis. It felt like a bad dream. 1 minute, life was chuntering on. The next, well, someone switched the reels. Somewhere, in some parallel universe, life was continuing to chunter on. Here, in this one, where I was unaccountably stuck after some through-the-looking-glass moment, Mammograms, ultrasound, core biopsies, sitting in a square at Bart's weeping, apologising on my partner's shoulder in the soft rain, the world suddenly upside down, guilty. I or my body had let us down. Him, the kids, me. Having heard this person's story, we'd like to invite you to pause this video and think about how your experience was similar or different. Was there anything from what you've just heard that you could relate to? Notice things that were different for you. What were those differences? Being diagnosed can feel like a time of threat and uncertainty. Some of the common thoughts that people have are, do I have to stop work? Will I be able to make the mortgage payments? How will it end? Will I get better? What will happen to me? How will I cope? Can I still be me? As a result of having some of those thoughts, you might notice some common reactions, such as avoidance, wanting reassurance, distracting yourself, trying to control what you can through planning and research. What we do from those actions then impacts how we think and feel, so we might experience some common physical and emotional things like shock, disbelief, anger, fear, guilt, palpitations, nausea, headaches. What we feel then affects how we think, which then impacts what we do. So it becomes a bit of a cycle. Our thoughts are connected to our feelings, are also connected to our behaviours. It's common to have a roller coaster of emotions. This might be a normal process, but it may not be normal for you. We'd like to invite you to watch the following video clip from the TV series Breaking Bad, where one of the main characters, called Walter, receives his cancer diagnosis. You can find the link to the video in the additional information page. Alternatively, you can search for the clip in YouTube using the search terms Walter learns about his cancer, Breaking Bad, Season 1, Episode 1. Having watched the clip, what did you make of it? How does this link to your experience of being diagnosed? The main takeaway message from this chapter is that it is normal to have a range of reactions to your cancer diagnosis, and there's no right or wrong way to respond to the news. You may have reacted one way, and those around you may have reacted a different way. All of it's fine. The next chapter will cover what is a normal reaction.